Alrighty.
All right.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's a little bit different medium that you're seeing an episode of Blackpacking, but we're doing like a double whammy because we're here at Podfest in Orlando.
Absolutely.
I got Josh with me.
Absolutely. How to meet y'all. Good to meet y'all.
And we ran into each other. We're both travel podcasters, so obviously we had to do an episode.
See, I was actually on the floor and stopped by, and honestly, I forget. It was a podcast that was dedicated to expanding people's understanding of like deaf folks and like bringing like podcasts, allowing them to hear and whatnot. And one of the brothers over there was like, "You got to meet Jarika." And I was like, "Oh, where?" And he was like, yeah. She was like, after I had explained the travel guides and everything, and so I was glad that when we actually ran into one another.
Yeah, it was meant to be. Podfest has been amazing. This is the last day actually. I'm getting ready to head back to Atlanta. And where are you headed?
I'm heading back to Tampa. Down the road.
And is that where you're from?
No, so I'm originally from Tennessee. I'm a Southern boy. Shout out to, we still believe in Nashville, hashtag Nashville strong, all that action, all the people affected by the tornado. But I'm from there. I've moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So I've lived several places domestically. I've lived abroad in like Panama and Colombia, and then actually backpacked or blackpacked through Europe in Spain, Italy, France, Andorra, and Portugal as well. So kind of a citizen of the world in that regard. But I settled in Florida, where I'm not mad at the weather.
Yeah, no.
Especially coming from Chicago most recently.
Yeah. How long have you been in Tampa?
It's been like a year and a half.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pause for 1 second.
Okay.
I just thought about something.
Yep. Oh, perfect.
And I'm back. Just wanted to be able to like see ourselves.
Oh yeah, I'm not mad at that at all.
But yeah, so you've been in Tampa for a year and a half.
Yep. But the biggest thing, the biggest benefit, I think, to living down, and I mentioned most recently I had lived in Chicago, and there's two huge airports. There's O'Hare, which I hate.
Yeah.
Hate it with all my heart, and Midway, which I love.
Yeah.
It might be my favorite airport domestically, but the best thing about moving down here is the proximity to like South America, the islands south of America, Central America, and I mean, I just got back most recently from Turks and Caicos, and it was like $225.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like round trip, it was like super cheap.
Really inexpensive. Yeah, and that's kind of what your podcast is about, right?
It is.
Making like travel accessible.
Absolutely.
And how'd you come up with the name like Travel Guydes?
The Travel Guydes.
Yeah.
So I guess to back it up a little bit. So Josh, I am the host of the Travel Guydes podcast, Guydes. For those of you who are looking up, please subscribe and review it. But yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur and wanted to do something where I could share some expertise with people and make a little money while doing it as well. And I've had the privilege of traveling a little bit earlier on, before it was cool and before it was like a movement. And so there's still a lot of people. While I love to see a lot of people and people of color getting out and traveling, there's still a lot of people who are hesitant to do so. Typically for 3 reasons. One, because of cost. They don't know how to navigate the price, so we try to teach them how to travel economically and knowing that everybody goes down to Miami, but you could go to Cartagena for the same price.
Yeah.
So secondly, it's general xenophobia. They're just scared of what they don't know.
Yeah.
So if we can leverage our experiences or if I can leverage my experience and other people's and the guest experiences to help ease that, then that's great as well. And then thirdly is getting time off of work.
Yeah.
So I'm someone who has anxiety when work is going on and I'm not there. So I like to travel around holidays, and being able to show how you can leverage a PTO, how you can do all these things to get that mesh point there. Then there's no reason why people can't get out and explore a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I love that.
And yourself, what's going on? Give me the download on Blackpacking.
Started last May. It was kind of like I'm gonna test this out. I listen to podcasts all the time while I'm traveling.
Right.
And I think I was listening to a bunch of podcasts when I was backpacking through Europe. And
where were you in Europe?
So I flew into Zurich, Switzerland, and I kind of I had 10 days to kind of make it back to the airport and like circle around. I bounced around to Prague,
Nice.
Budapest, Vienna.
Did you have a plan?
I didn't have a plan.
Okay, that's the best way to do it.
All I knew was that I was flying into Zurich at this time and was
Right.
leaving at this time. I hadn't like booked any hostels. I didn't know like really what I was gonna see or do. I just knew like I had 10 days to do it.
Right.
And I love doing that.
That's
I've
dope.
done that a couple times. And like it's just, you know, it's very exhilarating, it's very freeing
Absolutely.
to be like, oh, I'm like writing my own agenda.
Right.
And with that being said, just like journaling, listening to podcasts, and then coming back and just having like, I feel like so many stories and so many different relationships with people along the way. I was like, I want to do a podcast about this. I really felt like I needed an outlet to explain a lot of those stories, because I like get back and I see my friends and I'm like, oh yeah, like this and this happened, and they can already kind of see things like on my stories.
Absolutely.
But they never really know like the emotion,
Right.
or like what I'm feeling when I'm traveling. I'm usually by myself, so the podcast was the perfect way for me to be like, hey everybody, so when I was here, this happened to me.
Right.
Like maybe some of you know this, maybe some of you don't know this, but like here's this story, and that's kind of how it started out, and I really liked it.
Right.
And as I still get like nervous around the microphone, but I'm also like very, very comfortable around it. It almost seems easier to like talk to a microphone than it is like to talk to people.
Absolutely,
sometimes.
yeah. I can definitely
And
see that.
it's cool. I think one thing that was like super uplifting here at Podfest was kind of, I feel like there's two type of podcasters.
I'm interested to hear this.
All right, half of us are like what you think someone that has a podcast is like, that they love to talk,
Right.
and they'll just keep talking, and then the other half of us are introverts,
Yeah.
and we found podcasting to be the perfect like medium for us to like interact with other people,
Right.
or just do something solo. And I definitely think I'm like in the middle there.
Okay.
So once I started like putting out a couple episodes, I just like loved it. I felt like it was like very therapeutic for me.
Absolutely.
And I was getting such great feedback. Like my friends were like, oh, this is awesome. Like
Right.
keep doing this. And then I was like, I need to like add another angle to this.
Right.
And then that's when I started interviewing people,
Yeah.
and then like just loved it more. And now I'm to the point where I don't know most of the people I interview. At
Yeah.
first I started with like some friends to get more episodes
Right.
out there, get practice.
Gotta hone the craft.
Yeah, so, and now I'm interviewing people that I don't know, and just like having that 2-hour long conversation with them on the phone has been amazing. And I've definitely like created a Blackpacking community. And you know, they know who they are, and we've just had such great talks and interactions, and I know that they're there for me if
Right.
I need travel advice, and like vice versa. And so it's just been a really fun and like cool thing for me to do. It just kind of started out like as a small like idea, and it's like turned into being like a little bit bigger.
That's dope.
So,
That's super energetic. I'm glad that we were able to get the Blackpacking community and the travel fam together.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how to structure the episode. You know, obviously it's different
Yeah.
when you have two people who have the same show,
Yeah.
or a very similar show, very similar
Yeah.
content, and are going to conduct the interviews the same way. So we thought that it would be most appropriate to have a joint show where we are interviewing each other, but also keeping a very casual,
Yeah.
free-flowing conversation as
Yeah.
well. And so for the Travel Guides listeners, you guys will remember from the Menage podcast where we had the grab bag episode where there were topics in the middle, and we were able to reach in and talk through the questions and get to hear each other's perspectives. And so that's what we're going to do here as well. So we've both written five-ish questions each, and you want to dive in?
Yeah, I'll start. What are we gonna do if we get our own question?
You gotta answer. You gotta answer. Yeah, you gotta.
Because there's probably a reason why we wrote it.
Right.
You have the answer back there.
Absolutely.
All right, and this is kind of my first time doing this, so this is exciting. I'm gonna close my eyes to make it fair. Oh, I feel like I wrote this one. I can tell. I want to get one that you wrote. All right, let's see. This one I also wrote.
It's all good. It's all
okay.
good. We're
I'll
all
take
with
it. I want you to answer this
Okay.
question because I really liked it. And it was the first one I wrote. Have you learned more about yourself through your podcast or traveling?
That is interesting. Through my podcast or through traveling? I want to default to say through traveling, just because I've been in different. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like you learn a ton when you're put in uncomfortable situations. I think the most uncomfortable I've been was in India, and that's where I think I'm pretty adaptable, like as a person, and I know other people are not. So sometimes it can be hard for me to. It's not hard for me to empathize with people, but like I'm very much like a get over it and like let's go.
Yeah.
But I think being uncomfortable myself and being put in a different situation, it was I could always appreciate that aspect when I'm traveling with other people who are newer to traveling.
Yeah.
I will also say, like, I've learned a ton through the podcast, and like you were talking about previously having like the journaling and like getting feedback from your friends and whatnot, and I think it's very energetic when you're getting feedback from people and people that you don't know who are listening, and you can see that the podcast actually is meaningful to some people, and that they are internalizing and using the information, which is, I think, a passion point for both of us.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I would say the podcast. Traveling, absolutely. I've learned a lot about myself, but also I learned more things about myself that I already kind of knew. And it was just more like shown.
Right. Like what?
That I'm just like, that I'm tough, but I'm also like afraid. And like my toughness, like me doing like traveling sometimes is like because I'm scared too. It's like something that I like, especially traveling by myself, like don't believe that I'm like not scared 100% of the time, you know, which I already kind of knew I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, but I'm still really tough and I can do it, you know. A lot of people are like, whoa, I would never do that by myself, and so I know that I'm at least tough enough to do that. Yeah, I might be scared the whole time while I'm doing it, but I'm still doing it.
To persevere through it.
And what I learned about myself, I feel like I've just learned more about myself in my podcast because of how I communicate with people, how I interact with people. And yes, I'm doing that while I'm traveling, but I hear it and now I'll see it more. I'm like, oh, I hate that I do that. Like, do I really like make that gesture? But I actually get to like hear how I talk, hear how I like am interacting and like perceiving and receiving someone's information. I realize that I say that's awesome a lot. And
I mean, it's good when there are a lot of things that are awesome. You know?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are awesome, and I think, you know, and so I realize that I learn how I speak to people, and I think that's like really, really important because like when I am traveling, I should be aware of like how I'm speaking to people, how I'm listening to them. And so I think I've learned more about my podcast personally.
Yeah.
Learn more about myself through my podcasts. So yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's good. And I mean, it's awesome that you're able to pivot, to recognize that in yourself and then pivot so that you can communicate more effectively in person and through the podcast.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I'm really like trying to work on. I'm really trying to work on like projecting myself and like speaking up. I'm like, wow, I really mumble. Wow, I really need to like enunciate. And that's, I don't know, it's just something I feel like I need to like work on. And when I'm traveling, I'm not like, oh, I need to like work on this, you know?
Yeah, that's good. Well, to keep it fair, I will actually. I'm just gonna close my eyes.
Yeah.
I think this is one of yours. Okay, the question is, what do you feel is the worst thing someone could say about your podcast?
Like a review on Apple that where you were like, should I keep going?
I think
going through with this.
I gotta say, I'm a pretty shameless individual. So like at the end of the day, I don't really care what people have to say about me. But I will say we do internalize, and I think that there is a synthesizing of information that we all go through to whether you're showing emotion or reaction to it or not. So I will feel it. You just may not see my reaction. So I think the biggest critique would be one of two things. So there's a Jay-Z quote that I can't think of right now that would be perfect and super smooth as butter if I could drop this, but I can't. But something to the effect of, if you talk about me, like say what you want about me, but care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I think if somebody listened to it and they were like, I don't care, I think that would sting a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I think that would be it. I think just not caring or thinking that it wasn't like good, valuable information.
Yeah.
I think that because I know what I'm talking about because I've lived it and I've researched it.
Right.
But I think that I've never claimed to be an expert traveler or an expert on whatever. I'm just a humble servant telling the people what I know and what I've learned. So I think that's probably like just a total apathetic approach.
Yeah.
And just not caring at all about what's going on.
Yeah.
What about you?
Probably one biggest fear is I'm waiting for the day for someone to be like, this is boring. Maybe that's the same type of like empathetic, like why should I care? Why should I listen?
Right.
Why do these people matter?
Right.
Just being like bored.
I'm also like, that was the thing I was most scared about as well, right? Because I think like unless you're a narcissist, like you don't necessarily think that you're the most interesting person in the world, and that people will care about what you have to say. But at the end of the day, I think we can put ourselves in the shoes of the listeners and know that there's been a time where, no lie, no BS, I was packing for Turks. Super last minute, because that's how I get down. And I was like, I have done no research on the country. I don't know anything. I'm doing all my research there. And I legit thought to myself as I was grabbing pants and shorts, hoodies and t-shirts, like I wish I could listen to something right now that would tell me what I need to know for Turks. And I was like, you do that. So you'll be able to do it. And it's like that. I think having that perspective is why I personally was audacious enough to think that people would give a damn what I had to say.
Yeah, cool.
Good.
All right, I'm gonna pick another question.
I like this.
All right, we're gonna keep going. All right, eyes closed. Grab bag. If you could only go to one place for 10 years, where and why? Okay, 10 years.
So I wrote this. And I thought about the clarification that may be needed. You can only go to one place where you are not from. You can go there. You don't have to stay there for 10 years.
Yeah.
But that's the only place that you can visit.
That's the only place I can visit.
It's the only place you can visit for 10 years.
For the next 10 years. Yep. That's easy, I think, for me. I think if anyone's listened to my show, I love South Africa. It was the first place.
Come on, motherland. Come on.
It was the first country I visited, and it's the one I always say is kind of my favorite, and I want to go back because for me, it gave me everything that I wanted in traveling to a country. Food, wine, coffee, music, the beach, scenic mountains, endless things to do, and the people.
Right.
So if I had to keep going back to South Africa for 10 years, I wouldn't be upset about that. The community there is super welcoming. I made some friends while I was down there. And it's a place that it seems like all year round there's something to do.
Right.
And so it doesn't really matter when you're there. I love it.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I think, so candidly, that was mine as well.
Oh, really?
I love South Africa. My listeners know I stand South Africa, man.
Like, it is, I'm so glad that was my first out-of-country experience, because I think that was like me being like, every place is going to be South Africa.
That's a hell of a way to jump in the game, though. I took a very traditional, obviously, the Caribbean and whatnot, but then, Spain, Europe and all that kind of traditional, the diet version of international travel. No shade to anybody who's going to Europe. And then it was much later that when I actually got to Africa and in South Africa. I think South Africa was definitely mine, but in the interest of keeping things shaken up, I will go with Colombia. So I think
Colombia's that second.
yeah, I definitely love Colombia, Bogota, Cali, Cartagena, Medellin, like the whole nine. Like I do enjoy all of Colombia.
All of Colombia, yeah. Colombia is my second, absolutely. Almost for the same reasons as South Africa, but it's just, different completely.
The food in South Africa, though, man. I mean, the food, that was like the first place that I had that was like my favorite type of food.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just like, everything was just so fresh. And then like,
so fresh.
Oh my gosh. And then the wine, when we were at Wine Country, I've like stopped really drinking wine, and I was like, it got me back in the game. Like it was just a whole night. It was just scenic, beautiful people. I mean, oh my god.
The vibes, yeah.
Yeah,
we gotta take a trip.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
All right.
Is it on me?
Pick your question.
Okay. That was real because I have no idea. Of course, I grabbed mine. Okay, what 3 items do you have to have on a trip and why? For me, I have asthma, so my inhaler is at the top of the list. That if I didn't have that, that would be a trip ruiner for me.
Wow.
So I would say my inhaler, my camera, I shoot Canon, so either my SLR camera or my mirrorless, and then I would say headphones.
Yeah.
I gotta have headphones or running shoes because I gotta work out while I'm over there as well. That will ruin a trip for me if I just feel like I'm going out instead of.
That's the one thing about traveling. Like it's so easy to get off routine.
Yeah.
Like self-care, whether it just be something simple like working out, eating right too. All those things get thrown off, which can like kind of throw you off like mentally if you're like me and I have to like be active at some point during the day. Absolutely,
and you can get a lot of that within like the adventure of the trip. Like if you're hiking or if you're doing, but if you're just laying around and doing nothing, I'm definitely coming back plus 15, like plus 10. It's easy.
Yeah.
What about you?
Let's see, 3 things.
3 things
I need.
Gotta have.
I have to have my C-bands.
Okay. What are C-bands?
C-bands are they're for motion sickness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't experience motion sickness on a boat, sometimes in a car, but mostly in the plane.
Okay.
Landing, I pretty much throw up every time.
Seriously?
Yeah, not a lot of people know this about me.
Do you throw up in the bag or you coincidentally end up in the bathroom?
I already know it's coming. There have been a couple times I've had to like, as you're supposed to be like buckled in.
Right.
I like get up and I like go into the bathroom in the back and they're like, "Ma'am, you need to sit down." I'm like, "No, I'm about to throw up," and they'll like let me go in there. Or if there's a flight attendant like close by, like go hit the button.
Every flight.
Just about. I mean, the C-bands like really they help. But sometimes I feel like I might not have them in the right position. So apparently there is a pressure point. You can almost see where I've worn them, like in my skin. But there's a pressure point, 3 finger lengths down from your wrist, and there's this little ball inside of the wristband. It's supposed to put pressure.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's supposed to help the equilibrium in your brain, apparently. And I think it does. Like I feel better, but sometimes I will still burp up a little bit. I know that's gross, but it happens.
Hey, look, we are who we are.
Yeah, we are who. And like, I mean, I've felt that way on planes as long as I can remember. Like since I was first taking planes, they always made me feel a little bit sick. So I need those. And I need them when I'm in cars too. If I'm in a taxi, I've been in some countries where taxi drivers, like I've been like,
right. I can believe it.
And so I'll wear them in taxis. So definitely C-bands. Let's see, that's like something I need. I'm gonna have to say, I could do with my computer or cell phone.
Okay.
I don't want to say both because I don't think you like realistically need both.
Need both, yeah. They're very similar.
Very similar, yeah. And then I'm gonna say my little baby, my little Lumix.
We were nerding out on cameras earlier, and she was hollering about the Lumixes. She feels very similarly how I do about my Canon. Like I'm not going anywhere without it.
Yeah, I'm just not going. Like the thing is, there have been some trips where I haven't even really used it.
Yeah. But just knowing that it's there.
Just knowing that it's there, because you never know.
Right. You gotta get the flame shots.
Yeah, and it's something I have to get better with when I travel, because I try not to be like super like taking a bunch of videos
Right.
or pictures. Like I want to, and I know that I need to, especially that being like what I enjoy doing.
Exactly.
But for some reason, when I travel, I like to like visually like take it all in,
Yeah.
and I can get so distracted if I like wanted to do a video,
Right.
And then I'm like focused on that and not necessarily the trip itself or where I am. I'm like trying to get like the perfect shots constantly, so I try to have like a good balance with that.
That's dope. I would agree. So two things to that. One, that was actually a resolution, I believe in 2018, was for me to take my camera with me more places, just because I wouldn't, and it would be kind of like a special, like if I'm on a trip or whatever. And then the second thing is, I don't know why. It could be societal norms or whatever, but I feel like I am in the moment if I walk into a site, and let's say I'm on Table Mountain, keeping with the South Africa theme, and I look around, I've got my camera in my hand, I look around, I'm taking it in, I'm like, man, this is beautiful, this is crazy. You know, perspective. It's very hard to say 3 times fast. and then I start shooting. If I have my phone, then I feel like I am distracted, and I feel like less like I'm in the moment.
Yeah.
Totally arbitrary, but I don't know why. I've honestly thought about that before.
Yeah, it's weird. Before I didn't feel that. When I first started traveling, I was like, I gotta capture this, I gotta get this, and then I think the more you start to travel, you're like really like taking everything in at first, and then you're like, okay, now I'm gonna get whatever I'm gonna get,
right?
Which is cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think it's your turn.
All right, I got a couple more questions here. All right. What has been the most enlightening moment for you while traveling? I don't know, like enlightening as far as like self or outside of.
Either or.
So I don't know. Tell me if this answers your question. For
Okay.
some reason, this is like the first thing that pops in my mind. So I've been like working on my Spanish. I've been trying to improve my R's, rolling my R's constantly.
How are we doing? Are we good with it? Give me a rojo.
Rojo. Arroz. I'm getting better.
Right.
And this is gonna sound crazy, but for some reason, like seeing this person roll their R's made me like understand how it should be done.
I do it. That's good.
But it's like I know how it should be done. I just can't quite get my tongue to do it.
Right.
So crazy story. Let me get into it. I'm in Montevideo, Uruguay, and I'm walking around. I just like left my hostel, and at the time I didn't know that weed was legal there.
Oh, I didn't either.
Just so you know,
No, I
Uruguay is like actually like another one of my favorite countries because of that, and the people are so nice.
Right.
So I'm like walking around, and I come across like City Hall, and there are all these people just like chilling on the steps. There's like music playing, and everyone's just smoking weed.
Right.
In front of City Hall, people are just rolling up. And so, of course, I go over there and I sit down. I start talking to this guy, and he's telling me about Uruguay and, how they, like, legalized weed. And he smokes with me and goes off, and I'm just, like, sitting there, like, at City Hall, and I'm just so high. And I'm thinking, like, about everything he just said to me. I'm, like, really taking it in. And then this other guy comes and sits down beside me, starts talking to me. He doesn't have his 2 front teeth.
Okay.
He starts talking to me, and I'm like telling him, yeah, I'm like doing this trip, I've just been hanging out. And he was like, your Spanish isn't bad. And I was like, I really want to know how to roll my R's better.
Right.
And he was like, we're going to figure this out. I got you.
That's
And so he was like, we're going to keep practicing this until you get it, and you can do it 5 times in a row perfectly. So this guy, no front teeth,
Right.
showing me how he rolls his R's, and I can like see his tongue,
Right.
how he's like rolling his R's, and in that moment I got it, and I was able to do it like 5 times in
That's
a row,
awesome.
and I'm just like, and for some reason that was like really enlightening moment for me because I finally was like able to see how the tongue
Right.
worked.
But you also learned that like weed was legal
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and then you were being very accepting of having a cat with no front teeth pull up next to you because a lot of people would have gotten up and gotten out of there.
I was just feeling like such good vibes, and
Right.
previously, like the guy was saying that I smoked with, like he was telling me how safe Uruguay is
Yeah.
and how friendly. I was like, everyone here is so nice, and he was like, yeah, crime's like really low.
That's
So
dope.
he tells me that. I'm
I
like,
wonder
wow.
what that would be like.
So yeah, when this guy like sat down next to me, like nothing about him like seemed threatening. He didn't ask
Right.
me for money. He actually made me a little wire thing and
Oh,
then
nice.
gave it to me and left. You know, this homeless guy, no front teeth,
Right.
taught me how to roll my R's and gave me a gift and walked
It's
away.
like, peace. I don't need anything. I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm
and
out.
so it's like for some reason that was very, when I read that question, that moment is what I thought of. But it's always like little moments like that
Right.
that are like the bigger picture of an enlightening trip
Absolutely.
for me.
It's always the smaller things.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you are more accepting of, like, if that would have happened in, let's say you were in the Bay and you were in the Tenderloin and a homeless cat with no front teeth sat down next to you, you feel like you would have been like, all right, I'm out? Or do you feel like you were more accepting of it because you were abroad?
Yeah, for some reason, after that happened, I told my friend, I was like, this always happens to me. I mean, I'm sitting down at a bench, just really like looking at a city, people watching,
Right.
and then
Just vibing.
and of course, the person that would make me feel the most uncomfortable always sits down beside me and wants to talk.
Right.
And, you know, I'm just sitting there like, I really don't have nothing else better to do. And I haven't, like, it's crazy because that happens to me so often. I haven't been in a situation where it was a bad thing.
Right.
Or I felt unsafe. Or I, like, needed to get out of the conversation.
That's dope.
But I haven't really done that in the U.S., I'll say. For some reason, if I was, like, in San Francisco,
Right.
I probably would feel a little bit more uncomfortable. If I was in New York, I probably might feel a little bit more uncomfortable. But, it's always about, like, vibing out that situation and picking up on someone's energy. And I think I'm really good at that. And I think traveling has helped me meet different people and,
Yeah.
like, pick up on, like, good and bad energy. So
Absolutely. I was
So,
going
yeah.
to protect your neck.
what was an enlightening moment for you?
This is pretty easy for me. I think my biggest was we're gonna be South Africa to death, but basically when we landed. I've been wanting to go to Africa for a very long time.
Yeah.
I've been a little hesitant because I just didn't know.
Right.
But I was like, screw it, we're gonna go to South Africa. It was all good, and we pulled up in Johannesburg, and I was at a restaurant. And I needed a cut. I was looking like I do now with under this hat. And I was talking. I like looked behind. There was a brother that was there. I was with my guys, and he was a native. And I was like, yo, bro. I was like, where'd you get your haircut? And I was like, is it a black barbershop? And he was like, ain't no black barbershops here. I was like, it's just a barbershop. And I was like, yo, it's crazy. I was like, we're the majority? And he was like, yeah, it was the first time I'd ever felt that in my life. And I remember it was just like it's something that you've been conditioned to feel and to think for so long that like the sheer fact that it wasn't even on like any type of takeover action. Like it's more of us. Like it was just like, I don't have to be an exception.
Yeah.
Like I am the norm now. And that was just supremely trippy to me, and that's why I love Joburg so much specifically. When we went to Cape Town, it was very evident we were not in Joburg anymore. It looked like Miami, Orleans, like when you get off there.
Different.
Great time, great people down there. But it was just people and I had always heard like, we had never been the majority, and I had always heard that Africans don't rock with African Americans. And that had always that was what was beaten into my head. I had always heard that, and so I was expecting to like be mad, not with animosity, but definitely not welcome. And I remember one of the guys like after this had happened, so I'm having this black realization moment. It was like realization of self, and I'm walking down and I'm looking at some jeans, and the guy comes up to talk to us, and it's right after Trump has been elected. So he's like, everybody want to ask you about Trump, and I was like, it's all good. He was like, I feel like we need to, y'all need to come home, and I was like, oh man, it just like totally smashed the notion that Africans didn't rock with, in my mind. Granted, that's one person and it's not indicative, but like in my experience and in the experiences of a lot of people, like one person can make a great impact, And those were the two biggest realizations, because they had just smashed misinformation in my mind that I had been given for my entire life.
Yeah, wow, that is very.
It will always stand out in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm missing. Okay. See what we got here. What country's culture have you felt the most connected to while being there?
I have a feeling I know the answer to this question.
Ironically enough, it is not that. I would say Panama.
Panama, really?
Panama.
I was just there a couple months ago.
Oh yeah?
Back in January.
Wait, in Panama City?
I went to Panama City, and then I went up to like the coffee region, like Boquete.
That's what I'm talking about. So that was why. That was the first place I traveled to alone. So I was down there. I was working, and I speak Spanish, but I was just down there. They sent me. They were like, "Hey, come here. You're gonna meet a guy like XYZ. Like, go to the hotel." And I'm just in there. I'm just like, "Okay, I'm chilling." And I'm down there for weeks on end, a couple months. And I remember being there and using my Spanish, and my Spanish improving so much, and then like being immersed in the culture. And then for Easter, everybody leaves Panama City. No one is in the city, and I did not believe them when they told me that. And they were like, nobody's here.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you gonna do? I was like, I'll just hang out in the hotel, try not to inconvenience anybody. And I'm talking to like my boss and stuff, and she's like, no, like no one's gonna be in the city as a whole. And so like I started to believe her more, like as time went by. And then she was like, she came up to me like 2 days before, and she was like, before Good Friday, she's like, you need to come with us. Like, we're going to Boquete, and like, just come. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. So like, I'm just blindly got going, and then went to the coffee region and like all this, and it was just so tranquil. Yeah. And I know that people don't know about Boquete.
Yeah.
And outside of that, it was just like the people, and this was during like March, obviously, as well. I went to the University of Louisville, go Cards, and it was during March Madness. So I am walking, I'm looking for the game, and there is a Louisville bar in Panama City, Panama, and out of nowhere. And I was like walking, I was like, this is crazy. I was like, this is nuts. And it was just like the dopest experience and I was like 26 at the time. And it was just incredible to be alone somewhere. Like, again, before traveling is like cool and the thing is, and I'm just going around and exploring everywhere. Yeah. And it was the same thing, similar to why I have similar feelings to Colombia as well.
Yeah, I would say either Colombia, I felt that. I felt like definitely a very familial vibe there. Yeah. Especially because when I was there, it was during the holidays. I was during Christmas and New Year's, and I met some people and spent time with their family, and it was very I felt like I was a part of their family. Awesome, and to just get invited to spend time with them. And it was like a party, but it was like a big dinner party. Right. So it was a lot different than the New Year's that we have here in the States, where it's party focused. And I was like, oh, I love this. But yeah, that's kind of why I asked you that question. I wanted to know what culture you really felt accepted and vibed with.
I think knowing the language and helps you to not feel like an intruder or like a visitor necessarily. Yeah. And so I think that's a big part why I feel like, aside from just having a lot of respect for Latino culture, I think that's why it's a big part of why I feel connected to it as well.
Oh yeah. And Panamanian Spanish it's very slow to me. It's like a slower Spanish to me.
Which is perfect.
I'm like, which is perfect for me. And Panamanians are very nice. I think they're also very used to Americans. There are a lot of Americans down there. So it's not, we're not super foreign when they see us. I remember there were a couple times I would start speaking Spanish to someone, they would just speak perfect English like back to me, and I'm like,
that is low key irritating. When they do that, I'm like, you know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I feel like you're telling me that my Spanish is trash. Like, I'm just like, I just don't.
Or they're trying to be like, I know English.
That's true.
A lot of times I'll like,
so don't flex on me.
They're like, I also know 2 languages.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still working on my R's 3 years later. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna get another question. How'd you like the coffee in Panama?
I loved it. That was actually what got. I almost mentioned that we were in Starbucks earlier.
Whoa!
My bad. I let the cat out of the bag.
Whoa!
It's the only thing that's available here.
I want to keep this really raw, so I'm not gonna edit that out. But we're not gonna talk about that.
When I started to bring that up there, I was like really into coffee when that was happening. That's what started it. Because I didn't know that coffee beans weren't beans. Like,